Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's Hector Aguilar, Band Pie Champagne, and today we have a special guest with us, Denise Gonzaga of Home
Hi.
Staging and Interior Design Elite. We've invited Denise to join us today because, we've started the new year in 2022. We're a couple weeks into this new quarter. And of course, the common theme right now for most homeowners that are thinking about selling is it a good time to sell? And resoundingly, Ben and I can tell you that the answer is yes. Inventory is still low, and there's still a lot of demand for homes, sellable homes in the market throughout Southern California. As you know, Ben and I, we serve the East San Gabriel Valley, the Inland Empire, what we call the four counties, right? San Bernardino County, Riverside County, North Orange County, and East LA County. Although we've sold homes throughout Los Angeles, that's kind of the areas that we focus on. And with the thought in mind of, homeowners thinking about putting their property in the market, we actually thought that this week would be a really nice feature to invite a professional home stager and designer. And so we've had the pleasure of working with Denise in the past, and we've been collaborating over the last few months. And so we wanted to introduce you to Denise. Denise, tell us a little bit about yourself and home staging and interior design elite.
Okay, great. I have been in the industry for about 8 years. I started at interior design in Newport Beach. Went to school there, then specialized in home staging, and then got my associates in interior design. So I worked out in Orange County for a couple years, and
Okay.
I actually live in Ontario.
Oh, okay.
So I was commuting for like 2 hours every morning, which just, yeah,
That's
that's
insane.
not fun.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine it is.
So decided to pretty much bring everything out this way.
Mhm.
And now I've just been working out in the Inland Empire. I still get like jobs in LA, so I'm still pretty much everywhere. There's really like no limit, I would say, as to where I would go.
Okay.
As to realtors as well. So yeah, as far as our company, our storages are based out of Ontario as well.
Okay.
Usually it takes about 2 to 3 days to stage a home. And I could go about like the process from start to finish, because from what I've been seeing lately is a lot of realtors that have never staged a home, and now in the market they're like, hey, like I'm interested now, and now they want to stage and they've never done it before.
Well, that's interesting. And that's one of the reasons why we're having this conversation and bringing this to our customer base is a lot of people don't understand staging and the benefits of staging, right? So one of the things that we wanted to talk to you about was overall, what's the general goal of staging a home? I mean, a lot of people that have their homes, that live in their homes, they have furniture, they have their personal items in there. And many of them might ask, well, I could just kind of organize and clean up and I don't need staging. But you and I know that staging can make a big difference. And Ben, you could probably attest to the fact that when we're out there, showing properties, there are some properties that stand out better than others. And even those that are owner occupied benefit hugely from staging. So, Denise, what is the goal of staging a home?
So the goal is to pretty much, you want to get the highest dollar possible
Correct.
and get it out the quickest on the market, with more people walking into your open house, which happens a lot more when you stage versus non-staging.
Correct.
And lately that I have been working with a lot of realtors who have never staged, and now they're like, hey, like I'm interested because I see now like a lot of people are they're doing it now, and it's
Right.
like a trend. And every realtor recently that I have worked with that has never staged and now stage, they say they would never go now back to not staging because it
Right.
made that much. Oh, it,
Sorry
it
about that.
made
Go ahead.
it's okay. Uh-huh.
Just trying to get the best view for you so they can see you well.
Here, I know it's a little.
So you mentioned that the goal of staging is obviously to get the highest dollar price for a property and also to get the home sold in the quickest amount of time, right?
Correct.
And I think a lot of homeowners that have furniture currently, they might be thinking, well, do I really need to invest in staging? And the truth is, right now, most sellers are competing against new home developments, right? New home
Right.
developments, and when you go into a new home development, what's the first thing you see is, I mean, amazing furniture, amazing vision, amazing design, and I think that that's something that staging provides a seller in terms of exposure, and more importantly, like the subheading says, it impacts your price, right?
Oh,
What are the statistics in your experience of a property that's stage in terms of price and a property that's not stage? What have you seen in terms of the price difference?
wow. So I can tell you that the last four, I mean, I could give you more if I like go down the list, but
Sure.
definitely the four in the last month
Uh-huh.
during Christmas season, which it's very slow. Like everyone's like, oh no, I'm not gonna go out to see houses. They're out of state. But surprisingly, one in Claremont, for example, got staged with using also some of their furniture as well because it was going to
Hmm.
be owner occupied.
Okay.
Got sold within the first open house, 130 over in Claremont.
Wow.
In West Covina, I had a stage, um, and same thing. The realtor was like, "Hey, can you put like a Christmas tree? Like, make it, like just
Sure.
so, yeah, like whoever comes in." I was like, "Yeah, of course." And same thing, over asking price. It was very outdated,
Hmm.
so a lot of the people, instead of going to the outdated details, they went to like, oh wow, like this looks really nice, the space planning, the accessories and whatnot. And what she did tell me, she was like, Denise, um I got a lot of really good feedback, and they pretty much couldn't have viewed the house the way if it was stage versus non-stage. There was
Right.
no way they could have viewed it because it had wallpaper. um Nothing was touched ever since, I'm not sure what year, to be honest.
It's
um
interesting you mentioned that. I think that staging allows you to improve the property as far as it views to buyers, and as a seller, that's what you want to do, right? You want to appeal to as many buyers as possible. And it's interesting you
exactly.
mentioned like wallpaper and some older furniture, and the seller might think, well, my house, it is what it is. I'm not
Right.
gonna repaint it or I'm not gonna remodel, and you don't necessarily have to do that. But I think what
Right.
staging does is it allows buyers to see what can be once they purchase the property, right? They can envision themselves. And I want to share your website because your website is fantastic, by the way. I want to congratulate you on that.
Oh,
But I
thank
want to show
you.
our guests off of your website some of the kind of like the properties that do have, furniture. For example, this particular property here, here's this particular one here at the
Right.
bottom. This is how it's currently furnished, as you see. Uh, that the property owners had their own furniture, but then you turned around and staged it, and it's the same space, but I mean, just looks
Right.
amazing. Just looks
Thank
so much
you.
more modern, more attractive. Here we see another one that's currently kind of being remodeled, and then you go in and you stage it, and I mean, it completely transforms the space. Um,
Right.
and I think that's what buyers are looking for, right? They're looking for vision. They're looking for, how can I situate my furniture in such a way? What kind of design? I have a funny story that I want to share with you all. Recently, I was speaking to a friend of mine that was telling me that she bought a house
Uh-huh.
in the Victorville area. I want to say it was Hesperia.
Okay.
And she was, she's the type of gal that she liked the property so much and how it's staged that she actually purchased all the furnishings and all the staging items from the stager because she just absolutely loved how she had set up the home. And she didn't want to go through the headache of having to find the right sofas or the right furniture, or the right appliances. So she said,
Right.
hey, how much more do I have to pay you in order to get all this furniture? So she closed on the property, and then she bought all the furniture from the stager. So That's what staging does. It gives buyers the vision of what the design of the home can offer them in terms of how they can furnish it, what paintings they put on. And I think that's what the importance of staging can bring to home stagers. Um, once we get over the concept of the need to stage, what are the steps to prepping for home staging? Like, let's say we talk to a client and they've agreed to have someone come in and give them a consultation. What do they need to be doing in order to prepare for that home staging consultation, Denise?
So pretty much, so what I would do on that first initial call is just get like the basics, like how many bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, address, whatnot. Schedule that initial consultation, and then once I walk in there and do a walkthrough, what I'll do is I'll take pano pics of all of the rooms. I always recommend like all of the main rooms as far as like formal, living, dining, kitchen. If the patio kind of, needs some furniture, then we'll do the patio as well as master. And now from what I've seen is I have done, just like a little overview, like as far as does everyone feel they need an in-home office? And it's 100% everyone feels they need an in-home office somewhere. So that's one of the first steps is me doing a walkthrough with the client or realtor or both.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next step would be um, giving them different plans. Like, okay, if we did these rooms, this is how much it would be. If we did these rooms like without an office, this is how much it would be. And then once they agree, I would go ahead and send them the contract and then schedule an install date. And then during that time, also, I would give them my suggestions as to how to get the highest dollar amount. So
Wonderful.
whether it's them painting, or it could be the smallest things, but the smallest things can make a big impact. Taking down drapes, or if it is wallpaper, just the smallest things, making sure everything's super decluttered. If it's not non-owner occupied. So I'll make my suggestions before I go in, to just make sure they get the highest dollar amount possible, the most
Wonderful.
views, and most importantly, with photos, we want to make sure we we want to make sure the photos are pristine. Every
Right.
every pillow is karate chopped, and everything is balanced out throughout the whole house. So um so after we go through the contract and they're okay, we come up with an install date. Then from
Mm-hmm.
there I schedule my whole team. We go in there. It typically takes about 2 to 3 days, I would say.
Okay.
um I always give it one more day, just in case if we need to add on anything, but
Sure.
usually it is about 2 days or so.
Okay.
Um,
So I have a question for you really
sure.
quick. I know that when we go into the appointment, and let's say most of the properties are owner occupied, some of the majority of our sellers are owner occupied.
Right.
When you discuss those design elements with the owners, do you go in there looking at maybe being able to use some of the pieces that they currently have and incorporate them into your design? Or do you go in there and just clean slate, hey, we're going to replace everything and bring it in? Because the truth is there might be different budgets for different owners, right? So
Of
is that
course.
something that you do?
Of course. Yeah. And a lot of times, yeah, there is pieces that I could use. If it's a house from like 1960, and then I'm like most of the time I can't use any of the
Sure, sure,
pieces.
sure.
But for instance, yeah, yesterday I went into 2 consultations, and there was a lot of pieces where I was like, we could use this, we could use this. This would
Fantastic.
bring your budget down. Um, so, however, also I could save my clients money by not
Sure.
bringing as much inventory. And if the piece a furniture is just the perfect scale, then let's use it and save
Awesome.
you guys money. So we can
Awesome.
incorporate, also especially for like owner occupied, they want their bed. Everybody wants to sleep in their own bed.
No, for sure. For sure.
um
So, kind of transitioning into
yeah.
the actual days that you do the staging. What happens to the furniture that's currently in the property if it's owner occupied? Do the owners have to store it away in their garage, or what happens to their furniture? Do you guys store it away for them? And tell me a little bit about that aspect.
Great question. So a lot of times they do store it, or they'll, you know, get rid of it or give it to a family member and
Okay.
whatnot. But yesterday I did have, for the first time, a homeowner was like, I have no room in my garage. Can you take it
Hmm.
and then bring it back after? So this was the first time because yeah, normally they're able to store it in their garage, or they
Sure,
do have
sure.
like family members or like, here, take it, and
Gotcha,
whatnot.
gotcha.
But this specific client was like, I don't have any room for all of this stuff. So I did give him the option as to, we can shrink wrap it and take it to my storage. Once it's sold, we could bring it back.
Awesome,
And of
awesome.
course
And of
that would
course, that
be,
probably comes at a little bit of a price.
yeah.
There's a cost for that, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah. And
Wonderful.
it just depends like how much furniture there is. It wasn't too much, but actually, well, it was. So
All right. Well, now that we've kind of covered, that part of the storage and moving items, let's talk about pricing, right?
right.
Pricing is always a touchy issue. I know in my experience, pricing can be a little much depending on the amount of pieces and furniture that needs to be brought into the home. But talk to us a little bit about pricing. And of course, every home is going to be different depending on the needs of furnishings. But the other thing is payment, right? So let's talk about pricing. Typically,
Okay.
what should a seller expect to spend, on the basics? Like, when I call the basics is, for example, like your living room, your kitchen, your dining, and if there's a family room, right? Typically, the bedrooms, I tell my clients to minimize their clutter, to put out nice covers on there, to make sure that
Right.
all their shoes are tucked away, that their clothes tucked away. I think sellers can do that on their own. But when it comes to the design elements of staging, those are your main areas, which is your living, your family, your dining room, and your kitchen, right? So
Right.
tell us a little bit about some pricing options for those minimum packages.
Okay. So, one of the most beneficial things with our company is we do offer payment through escrow,
Okay.
which has been a huge hit late. Well, it's just been a huge hit since I started it.
That's really unheard of, and I thank you for that. And that's one of the reasons that I was excited to speak to you and bring you to our client base, is because you do offer that option. And I know in today's economy, a lot of homeowners may not have the wherewithal ability to pay for staging upfront. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love about your company and what you offer, is that you offer the opportunity to pay at close of escrow. So kudos to you, and I can see why that's a great hit.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, I don't know of another stager that offers that.
Hmm.
But so far, I mean, ever since we have offered that, it's been a huge hit because they don't see it coming out of their pocket right in the beginning. They're,
Hmm.
or like, oh, like, I don't know if staging is really necessary. And then once they see the outcome of it being sold, which most of our houses, they're sold within the first week. I think we've only had about two houses that have not got sold within the first week. And yeah, they're ecstatic about it, and especially, they see it coming out of their equity,
Hmm.
from the homeowner. And as far as, if sometimes realtors, they'll offer that as well, like, come, out of their commission, and then they'll see it on their back end. But then they're also really happy because then they see they got their 50,000, um 50,000 plus, because of
Above
the
their asking
staging
price.
was done. Or like this most recent one in Claremont, which is closing this week. they're, it's 130 up, so they're seeing
Yeah, no,
very
I mean, it makes
way.
total sense. There's so much benefit to the sellers for sure.
Exactly.
So tell me,
So,
what's the average cost, if you will, that you're seeing in a standard 3 bedroom, 2 bath home that has, your living, kitchen, dining room, and family room? What should a seller expect to spend on staging, more or less?
it always depends. It's a hard answer, just because it depends. Like, also, do they have any inventory? As far as the space, how's the floor plan? Is it closed off? Do I have to add more consoles to this and that? So every place is very different, regardless, even if it could be the same square footage, if it's an open floor plan or a closed one. But I could give you an average of, let's say, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, just an average. Let's just say about like three, like around three, let's say,
Okay. I
average.
mean, and that's pretty
And
reasonable. I know I've seen staging bills, run into the multi thousands, six, seven, $8,000. It sounds like you've got some affordable options, and again, I know pricing is going to depend on the needs of every homeowner, and it differs depending on the number of pieces. So, if you guys are interested in staging your home and you are interested in getting a quote, let us know. We'll definitely make an appointment on your behalf with Denise, and we'll get you out. We'll get her out there and her team out there, and we can discuss price. But I know pricing is depending on the number of pieces, and it varies overall. But I just want to tell some of our guests, an overall general idea of what staging might cost. But
right.
Ben, you had a question, Ben?
Yes. Hi, how's it going? Can you guys hear me?
Absolutely, we can hear
Good.
you.
Awesome.
Hi, Ben. You're so
Hello.
quiet over there.
Yeah, this whole time I didn't want to interrupt you guys. You guys were giving good information. So, yeah. So, my question is, just back at the payment plan, if they didn't choose escrow, do you have a payment plan also that they can?
Well,
Uh,
it would be either be, which I had started out in the very beginning, which a lot of home staging is, you pay up front, you pay the whole
Yeah.
amount
okay.
up front,
Mhm.
period.
Yes.
Okay.
So for me, yeah, I'm very easy to work with. So either, yes, you can pay me the whole amount up front, or we could do like a payment plan. If it's a 2-month contract, which usually
Okay.
it is, because my houses sell for the most part like within the first week. Divide it into two. And then the next option, which of course everybody loves, is the payment through escrow. And I send the invoice to the, whoever the escrow officer is handling the listing. And
Hmm.
then we go from there. They mail a check. I give them all the payment instructions and whatnot. But yes, they do have that opportunity to either pay the full amount up front, or, we could split it into two,
To
split
some
it in
payments if they
half,
needed
but no
to.
matter what, it has to, of course, come out to the whole sum.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, that's a great option. I think the
Awesome.
escrow option, Ben, is pretty good. No, Ben?
Yeah, that's pretty
That's
cool.
pretty
That
unique.
they
Yeah.
have.
Yes, yes.
So once once someone says yes to that payment and you gave them a quote and they said yes, yeah. So what is the next step? Like the movers come in, you guys come in. How's it work? How's it look like?
Yeah, so once they agree to the quote that I sent out, so the next step would be me sending them the contract. So that would, sorry. So that would be me sending the contract over. Most likely it's to the realtor for the most part, who
Hmm.
takes care of that. And then after that, then I would be in communication with scheduling an installation date.
Okay.
So for
Okay.
example, I went to a house yesterday. They're fully in. They don't think it's gonna be ready until about a week and a half. So we scheduled them. I believe around the 17th or so. They believe everything's going to be, all the touch ups are going to be done around
Okay.
the house. So we're already did the contract yesterday, um, signed it. We have the installation already. I already have my team movers all scheduled, penciled in for those dates. And 17th, I believe, 18th, and maybe 19th will be in the property and it'll be fully staged.
So I have a question for you in terms of when you already schedule that date. Let's say the property is owner occupied. Do you and the seller's already agreed to go ahead and stage the property? Are there steps or instructions that you give them in order to prepare for staging as well?
I do. Of course, owner occupied homes are much more, um, a little bit harder to work with
Probably a
just
little more challenging, I'm
because,
assuming.
yeah, especially like, if there's pictures and then they're going to sleep on the, bed and, move around stuff in the kitchen and whatnot. They're living there.
Yeah.
So it's a bit harder. So sometimes what I'll do, especially if there's a lot of people in the house, is right before photos, I'll even come in again and just touch and clean up everything because, of
Mhm.
course, stuff is going to be moved around and the
Sure.
beds aren't going to look the same.
Right.
So I'll usually do that.
It's
Um,
interesting. Kind of, it's almost like when Ben, when we do an appointment with the seller and we say, look, we're going to take the contract. They've agreed to allow us to help them sell the property. And then I go into the conversation, hey, let's prep your house for some amazing pictures, right? And I think that's part of our job to help you as a stager say, look, I know your house is lived in, and the first thing you need to do is you need to what declutter, right? Those are the things that we talk
yeah,
about. Declutter and depersonalize, right? In other words, let's
yes,
store them away as many things that you're not using, box them up, use your garage, put them in a storage, and depersonalize. What do I mean by depersonalize is take down all the family photos, take down anything that's a unique, art piece that maybe means something to you. You want to be, as an agent and as a stager, we want to be able to guide those sellers in terms of what they need to do to prepare their home, either for professional pictures and more importantly, staging. So I think a lot of that we can help you, prepare the homeowner in terms of getting ready for staging. But what I was more curious about was, are there big pieces that they need to be moving out? Like when you come in, does your team move stuff out, or is that something the seller has to do in preparation? That's kind of like the question I had.
so sometimes, like, if it's like smaller stuff, we don't mind, like, we'll move out. But if we're talking about like dressers that are upstairs, 2 stories, like massive dressers, we don't
Mhm.
want to be liable,
Sure,
for certain, and especially if there are unique pieces with glass and stuff
that
like
makes
that.
sense.
So I will tell them, the homeowner, like, unique pieces, especially, we don't want to be liable. But if it's like simple, wooden furniture pieces that aren't going to be too much of, a liability, then we don't mind those. But if they're definitely unique, large, humongous pieces, then the homeowner does have to, do, we'll ask them if they could do that.
That makes sense.
um we have also run into, another homeowner in Brea who, yeah, couldn't move anything, but did have like smaller boxes all around the house.
Mhm.
So yeah, that wasn't a problem. We're like, yeah, absolutely, we'll move, all the little boxes and stuff that he had laying around the house because he had some
Fantastic,
problems.
fantastic.
So, it's stuff like that. That's not a problem. But when we're talking about huge glass pieces that came from Italy, or like,
Yeah,
that's a tough, like, we don't want
yeah.
to be liable for
Yeah,
something
I
like
can imagine you guys don't want to take any liability. So
that.
again,
Yeah.
just wanted to ask just to make sure that we our clients can expect a conversation about that. So thank you for
How
answering that.
how long does the staging process take? You said something 2 days, right?
Yeah.
Typically.
So yes, yes, sorry. Yeah, so usually I always give it 2 to 3 days. Even sometimes it's one day, but I always like to just cushion it just in case if there's pieces that need to be added. However, there is a process that does take prior to that, which is the design concept, the space planning, the stuff, that stuff. So I do need a little bit of time right after a contract is signed. Sometimes I'll get people that are like, "Oh, well, okay, can you do it in 2 days?" And it's like no, because actually I gotta schedule everyone, and we have to start pooling and coming up with a design concept and space planning and stuff like that. But the process of us actually being at the house, I always give it 2 to 3 days.
Okay. I have a question for you. You mentioned that you want to get into the property as soon as possible once the agreement is signed so that you can work on the design element. Typically, do you want to schedule that within 24 hours or how soon do you need to schedule that appointment so that we can help you also set up the client as well?
So as soon as I find, as soon as we discuss like what rooms they want to be staged and whatnot, the sooner I could get in there, the better, especially if we're on a timeline of like, all right, they want to stage it within 3 weeks or, 2 weeks, or if it's a month and a half. But I always suggest the quicker I could get in there, the better, just because
Understood.
the space planning would come out with more detail, and the
Sure.
design concept, I'll have more time to work on that.
Okay.
So usually, I mean, then I would say the next quickest appointment that I could get in there, I'll
Okay.
offer them that.
All right. So typically, it doesn't have to be within 24 hours. It just depends on how far out you're gonna, start staging. You probably want it at least a week or 3 or 4 days in advance. Is that safe to say?
Um, I would say pretty much my next availability that works also with a client, then that's when I would want to jump in there.
Okay.
So depending on what my schedule looks like, I always like to, on any quotes, like the second I could jump in there and go in there and look at everything, then
Mhm.
that works best.
Okay. So the
Even if
sooner
it's
the
a
better.
month
Not
out.
not
Uh-huh.
necessarily within 24 hours, but the sooner the better, so that you can work on the design element right away. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you for that. Ben, do you have any other questions that you want to maybe ask her?
Yeah, so the last one would be, now we're selling the property. What's the next step?
So after selling the property, I usually suggest, the more days I have in advance just to schedule the movers and whatnot, but at least 7 to 10 days. I know usually, we have to wait until contingencies are dropped. So, but I always recommend 7 to 10 days so that way we could get everyone scheduled in, movers. And for the most part, it usually takes one day for us to get everything moved out. We'll go in there, patch up whatever holes we made and whatnot, and then from there, put the keys back in the lockbox for the realtor. And after that, we'll send the invoice to the realtor. They'll send it to the escrow officer if it's getting paid on the back end,
Hmm.
and we get the check, and you guys got a happy sale.
That was a great
Sold
question,
within
Ben.
1 week over asking price.
Right? The sooner we can
That's
get
our
paid, the better.
goal.
But no,
Yeah.
one of the things that we focus on in our company, as you know, I'm the team leader of Aguilar Realty Group, is we want to bring value to our clients.
Oh,
And
perfect.
honestly, I'm extremely excited about the opportunity of working with you and your company, just because there's just no one else that I know of that offers the ability to pay for staging at the close of escrow, and that's a huge benefit to our customers, to
It
our
is.
clients, and thank you for that. Ben, I wanted to thank you also for that was a great question. Typically, once the property goes under contract with the buyer, and the buyer removes all their contingencies, and then we're within probably 2 weeks of closing, that's when we would ask Denise to come by and set a date to remove all her furniture, and then in the case that there's an owner that has furniture, I mean, obviously they're probably getting ready to move as well, so there won't
Right.
be any furniture moving back in, so it's kind of a plus. But that's a great question, Ben. I didn't really think of the selling portion as to when all the staging has to come out. But I've closed a couple of purchases where they were staged, and I did remember that that there was a point where they were like, hey, are all the contingencies removed? Is the buyer moving forward? We need to remove all our furniture, right? So
Okay.
great question, Ben. And in closing, Denise, I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to meet with us, and to have this conversation. Like I said, right now, with the advent of people getting ready to sell in this first quarter, we're thinking about bringing value to our sellers, and making sure that they're thinking about maximizing their price for their property. I think
Right.
home staging is the next natural progression to being able to guarantee them a higher offer, and more competition. When we're out showing properties, never, and it always amazes us that sellers or buyers are actually gravitated to those properties that Ben and I know that are staged and they look fantastic. So just if you're thinking about selling, and you haven't interviewed any agents, we'd love to interview for the job of selling. We'd love to have an appointment with Denise to come out and give you some staging ideas, and we might be able to guarantee a higher price for your property, and at the same time make it look great, make the photography look great, and just help your property stand out compared to the others. So once again, Denise, I really appreciate you taking the time. In closing, just want to remind you all that myself and Ben serve the East San Gabriel Valley, the Inland Empire, and it sounds like there's same areas that Denise serves as well. So if you are thinking about selling, we'd love to work with you. Reach out to us. Once again, I'm Hector Aguilar of Aguilar Realty Group, along with Ben, your agent of Aguilar Realty Group. And in closing, thank you, Denise, once
No
again for spending some time with us.
problem.
Thank you
Nice
so
talking
much.
to you guys.
Take care, everyone. Till next
Okay,
week.
bye.
If you have any
Yes.
questions, we'll definitely be available for you. And stay tuned for our next week's video that we're bringing to you live on Facebook and YouTube. Take care, everyone.
Okay, sounds great.
Bye.
Bye. Talk to you soon.